The Two Faces of Debt, a Tale of Two Worlds. In the common narrative of modern life, debt is the villain. We are taught from a young age that credit cards are traps, that loans are heavy chains, and that living on borrowed money is the fastest way to ruin. For most, the weight of a monthly payment is a source of constant low-grade fever, a stress that lingers in the back of the mind with every swipe of a card. But there is a parallel universe where this logic is flipped on its head. In this world, the ultra-rich don't just use debt, they rely on it. While the rest of the world views a loan as a burden, the ultra-rich view it as their greatest engine for growth. In this deep dive, we explore the mechanics of a financial paradox, how the same tool that bankrupts the masses builds empires for the few. Welcome to Deep Doc's Wealth, the debt illusion. To understand this disparity, we must first dismantle the debt illusion. The word debt is a homonym. It sounds the same, but it means something entirely different depending on whose ledger it sits. For the average person, debt is a leak in the boat. It is almost always tied to wasting assets, things that lose value the moment you take possession of them. Think of the new car that depreciates as it leaves the lot, or the credit card balance used for a dinner that was gone in an hour. Even a primary residence, often touted as an investment, effectively freezes your liquid capital for decades. The double tax trap. In the true cruelty of debt for the working class, debt lies in the repayment cycle. When you carry consumer debt, you are fighting a war on two fronts. One, the tax man. You earn a salary, but before you can pay a single cent toward your debt, the government takes its share via income tax. Two, the bank. With what remains, your after-tax income, you then pay the bank both the principal and the interest. In this cycle, you are paying for the privilege of borrowing with money that has already been diluted by taxes. You are running on a treadmill that moves faster than you can sprint. But what if you didn't have to pay the tax man first? What if the debt itself was the shield that protected your wealth? The anatomy of a trap. When your paycheck arrives, it feels like a victory until you look at the balance. A significant portion vanishes instantly, redirected to creditors before you've even had a chance to breathe. To the casual observer, the culprit is the debt itself. But that is the second layer of the debt illusion. Debt isn't inherently a villain, it is a tool. However, for most people, it is a tool used without leverage. For the average person, debt is a fragile structure built on shifting sand. It is characterized by unstable foundation. It relies entirely on a recurring paycheck. Zero collateral. There are no meaningful assets backing the loan. Static assets. The money is spent on things that don't grow, like clothes, cars, or electronics. When you borrow this way, you aren't an owner, you are a tenant. You are effectively renting your life from the bank, and the moment you stop working, the walls start closing in. The cost of being risky. The financial system is a master at calculating risk, and it views the average borrower as a liability. Because your income could stop at any moment, the bank protects itself by imposing high interest rates and rigid terms. There is no room for error and no flexibility. From day one, the scales are tipped. Your debt is a mountain, your assets are a molehill, and your labor is the only thing keeping the mountain from collapsing. This is why consumer debt is a predatory cycle. You are forced to pay the highest price for money precisely because you are the one who can least afford it. The Great Divergence. Both the billionaire and the blue-collar worker walk into the bank to borrow money. They may even be looking for the same amount. But here is where the paths diverge. The average person borrows because they have to. They're spending money they haven't earned yet to survive or maintain a lifestyle. The rich, however, borrow because they choose to. They borrow significantly less than what they already own. While the common man uses debt as a bridge to get to next month, the wealthy use it as a moat to protect their kingdom. For the rich, debt isn't a way to spend more than they have, it's a way to keep everything they've built while using the bank's money to pay for the rest. This is where the tables turn and the rules of the game change entirely. Part 2. The Architect's Strategy. To the uninitiated, the lifestyle of the ultra-wealthy looks like a reckless spending spree. They fly on private jets, acquire sprawling estates, and invest in rare art, all without seemingly touching their bank accounts. This leads to the ultimate question: if they aren't spending their own money, whose money are they using? The answer lies in a strategy known among the elite as buy, borrow, die. While the average person is trapped in the earn, tax, spend cycle, the wealthy have built a fortress that bypasses the traditional financial gravity that pulls everyone else down. Step 1. Buy. The search for appreciation. The story begins not with a loan, but with an acquisition. The wealthy do not work for a paycheck, they work for equity. They buy or build assets that grow. This could be a tech empire, a portfolio of prime real estate, or shares in a Fortune 500 company. Crucially, as long as they don't sell these assets, they don't pay a dime in capital gains tax. The wealth sits there, compounding and growing in the dark, untouched by the IRS. To the taxman, a billionaire with $10 billion in stock but zero salary is technically broke. Step 2. Borrow. The wealthy's credit card. Here is where the magic happens. Instead of selling their stock to buy a yacht or a new home, which would trigger a massive tax bill, the wealthy person goes to the bank. They offer their massive portfolio as collateral. Because the bank sees $1 billion in stable assets, they are more than happy to lend against it at rock-bottom interest rates. This is called a secured line of credit. The wealthy person gets millions in cash. The interest rate is often lower than the rate at which their assets are growing. And the master stroke, since a loan is not income, it is completely tax-free. By borrowing against their wealth rather than spending it, they are effectively living on the bank's money, while their own money stays invested, growing faster than the interest they owe. Step 3. Die. The final escape. In the world of the ordinary person, debt is a ghost that haunts the family after a death. But for the architect of this strategy, death is the ultimate tax haven. Through a mechanism called the step-up in basis, when these assets are passed down to heirs, the cost of the asset is reset to its current market value. The decades of growth and billions in potential taxes simply vanish. The heirs can then sell a small portion of the inheritance tax-free to pay off the original loans, and the cycle begins anew for the next generation. The moral of the two stories. The story of debt is a tale of two different mirrors. In one mirror, debt is a predator. It stalks those who use it to consume, charging them high interest and stripping them of their labor through taxes. It is a weight that ensures you stay exactly where you are. In the other mirror, debt is a protector. It is a sophisticated shield used by those who own assets to bypass taxes, maintain control, and amplify their power. The tragedy isn't that the rich use debt, it's that the system is designed so that the only way to escape the bad debt is to already possess the good assets. The world's wealthiest aren't smarter because they have credit. They are powerful because they've learned how to make the bank work for them, while everyone else works for the bank. The epilogue, breaking the mirror. In the end, we realize that the financial system is not a single road, but a fork in the path. Down one path lies the consumer. Their story is written in the ink of after-tax dollars. They spend their hours trading time for money, only to watch that money diminish through the friction of interest and the weight of inflation. For them, debt is a shadow that grows longer as the sun sets on their career. It is a tool of extraction, designed to keep the gears of the economy turning at the expense of the individual. Down the other path lies the architect. Their story is written in the language of leverage. They understand that true wealth is not about what you earn, but what you control. By using debt as a bridge rather than a trap, they remain the masters of their time and the owners of their future. They don't work for money, they command their assets to work for them, using the bank's capital to build a fortress that the taxman cannot scale. The final lesson. The disparity we see today isn't just about who has more money, it's about who understands the rules of the game. The debt illusion thrives because we are taught to fear credit rather than respect its power. We are conditioned to be the perfect borrowers, reliable, taxed, and perpetual. But the moment you stop borrowing to consume and start borrowing to own, the mirror cracks. You begin to see the system for what it truly is, a mechanism that rewards the asset owner and penalizes the wage earner. As we close this chapter at Deep Doc's Wealth, the question isn't whether debt is good or bad. The question is, which side of the mirror are you standing on? Are you renting your life from the bank, or are you using the bank to build your empire? The path forward. Understanding this strategy is the first step towards reclaiming your financial narrative. While not everyone starts with $1 billion portfolio, everyone can start by shifting their mindset from consumption to acquisition. The sovereign mindset, a new beginning. The curtain falls on our story, but for you, a new narrative begins. We have seen how the elite navigate a world of hidden corridors and tax-free horizons, while the rest of the world remains trapped in the crowded lobby of high interest and heavy taxes. But knowing the secret is only half the battle. The real transformation begins when you decide to change your role in the play. To move from the world of the consumer to the world of the architect, one must adopt the sovereign mindset. It is the realization that your primary objective is not to earn a higher salary, but to acquire assets that the world and the banks value. The first step, reclaiming your labor. Every journey toward leverage begins with a single disciplined pivot. The wealthy do not start by borrowing for a lifestyle. They start by starving their liabilities to feed their assets. Imagine your financial life as a reservoir. For years, you have allowed leaks, high-interest credit cards, depreciating car loans, and impulse spending to drain your potential. To build a fortress, you must first plug the leaks. You stop paying the bank for things that lose value, and you begin the slow, deliberate process of accumulating things that grow. The second step, building the collateral. As your reservoir fills, your relationship with the financial system shifts. You are no longer a risk to be managed with high interest. You are becoming a partner to be courted. When you own a piece of the world, Whether through stocks, real estate, or a private business, you are building collateral. This is the only language the bank speaks with respect. By focusing on growth-oriented assets, you are creating a golden goose. The goal is never to kill the goose for a meal. The goal is to keep it alive so that one day you can borrow against its eggs. The third step, crossing the threshold. There comes a moment in the story of every wealthy individual where their assets generate more value than their labor ever could. This is the threshold of true freedom. At this stage, you no longer look at a loan as a debt to be feared, but as a line of credit to be utilized. You use the bank's money to keep your own money working. You live in the gap between the interest you pay and the growth you earn. You have finally stepped through the mirror. Closing thoughts. The story of wealth is not a fairy tale of luck. It is a blueprint of strategy. The path is steep and the gatekeepers are many, but the rules are hidden in plain sight. You now understand the debt illusion. You see the trap of the double tax, and you know the strategy of buy, borrow, die. The system may be rigged, but once you understand the mechanics, you can stop being a piece on the board and start becoming a player of the game. Thank you for watching Deep Doc's Wealth. Your wealth is a story. Make sure you are the one writing it.